at that, people. Look at that. Alright. God damn. God damn. Yes, salam. Let me see. Alright, let me just. What is going on? ये क्या हो रहा है? What? Right. Oh, I see it. I see it. Alright. Inna alhamdulillah wa kafah. والصلاة والسلام على رسوله المصطفى وعلى عباده الذين ارتضى ومن بهداهم اهتدى وبآثار أهل المدينة اقتفى وبعد فسلام الله على القوم أهلا وسهلا بكم ومرحبا مرحبا مرحبا people. Juan Ying Layth, bienvenidos a todos. Khush Amadid, Bakhair Ragle and Swagatam people, Swagatam. Champions League special. Good morning Vietnam. That's what I'm talking about. That's why doesn't Allah specifically, is it halal for male to wear earring, for male for male species? Yeah. One, you make the question sound so biological. I think you're about to drop some real technical, I don't know, there's some serious, this is like an advanced biology question. For the male species, is it permitted to wear an earring? Of course it is. Of course it is. God, I gotta say I'm hooked on this Coke as well, you know. This, God. Anyway, right, so for men to wear earrings, why not, people? Why not, is the question. It is permissible. In fact, I believe it's in Al-Bayan wa Tahsil, Ibn Rushd al-Jad, the granddaddy Ibn Rushd, where he's doing a commentary on one of the core texts of the Maliki Madhab, the Utbiyah, transmitting from Imam Malik. He presents the question that if parents, boys who wear earrings made out of gold. So Imam Malik says that that's makruh for boys to wear gold. But really their parents should see to it that they're not, because it's the parents who are making them wear that. So the parents should not really give them gold to wear because they're boys. As opposed to girls. Now, Imam Malik does not go on to say, but they shouldn't have earrings anyway. That would have been the more simpler thing to say. But in essence, because it's not haram for men to wear earrings. And in fact, Imam Malik's own son wore an earring, as is described in many of the descriptions. Some people have said Imam Malik had an earring. I'm not sure. I have come across some narrations. I'm not too sure about the authenticity of them. But I wouldn't be surprised because, you see, our assumption of how people looked back then is not how they actually looked. So when it comes to things like earrings, or when it comes to what they wore as casual jewelry, for example, it varies between culture to culture. You see, so a good example, let me give you a good example. Let's take women jewelry. If you take the example of, let's say, a nose piercing for women. Now, in the Indo-Pak part of the world, a girl to have her nose pierced is very ordinary. It is, in fact, expected almost. I mean, I don't know, pretty much, especially in that part of the world. It would be odd if they didn't. And I know for Hindu girls, they usually after marriage have a nose piercing, whereas Muslim girls in India and Pakistan always tend to have their nose pierced. And it's a very kind of Indo-Pak thing, and they tend to wear certain kinds of jewelry that is always like, they'll always have bangles, they'll always have certain things, they'll always have, for example, anklets or things like this. Is all part of the, it's very ordinary. It's not seen as, oh, they're doing themselves up. And in India, more so, in according to the Hindu kind of dharam and their kind of their teachings, these artifacts of jewelry that they wear are very important for their spiritual kind of connection. Hence they wear heavy kind of rings on whether it's going to be or bracelets, or they'll wear heavy kind of made out of certain metals that is supposed to have a kind of a Vedic spiritual connection for them as well, and bring them good luck and stuff. But this is very ordinary. So the reason I'm saying this is that now you take the West as an example, and a girl getting her nose pierced is seen as an act of rebellion. So although girls in the West too do pierce their noses, so they have nose piercings, but it's seen as a oh, Maulana Muaz Wahid, ahlan wa sahlan, ahlan wa sahlan. All right, people, a young Maulana in Manchester, you can reach out to him. Now, the point, what I was saying is that the point being that in the West, this is seen as an act of rebellion, a daring kind of act, like, whoa, like a girl gets her nose pierced, whereas in India, Pakistan, it would be odd if she didn't. So what I'm trying to say is, to the extent that they wouldn't even consider that as, oh, she's doing herself, like adorning herself or things, it's just the norm. So this was my point of saying that back then, how people perceive themselves to be of the norm may be very different to today. Osama, alright, ahlan wa sahlan, Zain al-Abidin in the house, people. Our newlywed viewer is in the house, taking time out from his festive period of the honeymoon to celebrate with us. Allahu Akbar. Either my shows are that exciting, or let's not contemplate the alternative. Right, so yeah, so my point of saying this is, so back then, boys wearing earrings is obviously a very common phenomenon. Hence, Imam Malik is saying they shouldn't be wearing gold. Whereas what he ought to be saying is they shouldn't be wearing earrings if it was haram. But yet the fact that he didn't even comment on that shows that the world back then, how we're picturing people, may not have reflected that. So anyway, moving on. Yep, so absolutely it's not haram. Right, so what's the next question, people? What's going on? What's going on? Were there any rival prophets? Allah! Were there any rival prophets at the time of the Prophet? Huh? At the time of the Prophet Muhammad. You talk about the Holy Spirit as it is mentioned in the Quran. Mukhannathun. Look at that, the questions are just flowing. What's your opinion on Dina Tokio taking off her hijab, and opinion of women, men marrying men, women marrying non-Muslim men? I'll come back to that question. I've been asked about that, and I've been sent a video on alright, Solomon, ¿cómo está? Right, how are you doing, man? What's going on? What's going on? I'll get to your question as well. What? Right, so, right, now, see, I'm reading through so many questions. They've all, I've forgotten them all now. Was some kind of wine allowed for some Hanafis? Some kind of wine. You see, the Hanafis, they didn't, it's not that alcohol back then wasn't, right, so I've got to, let me make this clear. Alcohol is made through a fermenting process. So you take natural products, like whether it's going to be grapes or in essence, you're taking sugar, you're taking sugary kind of things, and there's a whole fermentation process in which it produces the chemical alcohol, okay, by undergoing this process. Now, the question was that there were certain things that were fully fermented, so it's full on alcohol, and like wine, for example, back then they had wine as well. This was considered clearly haram, okay, by all people. Then you had certain things that were sorry, my humor, that were semi-fermented, right? So the point is that because they did not have the full, they weren't developed or they didn't have that level of alcohol kind of produced yet, they were deemed permissible by many people. Not all, but many. Namely, the school of Kufa, the Hanafi school, and other schools, but amongst them, this school became popular. So the Hanafi Madhab became a really popular kind of voice piece for this opinion. And they based it on the understanding of many companions, of people like Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu an, and other companions who would drink such drinks. These kind of, I've forgotten the name. There's some popular drinks, by the way, I think, which people liken them onto. I'm not sure. I've never drank them myself. I only strictly drink alcohol. That's a joke. It's a joke, yaar. Joking, yaar. I'm the joking. So today, in reference to that, so today, drinks that have a very low level of alcohol, things like, let's say 1%, 2%, 3%, these things, according to that understanding, would not be haram. And this is also the fatwa of the Salafi Sheikh as well. You wouldn't expect Salafi Sheikhs to be Sheikh Ji, kya aap bhi? Sheikh Hossein. Sheikh Hossein. It's only 3%, you know. It's on YouTube, actually. It's not me. I don't. Astaghfirullah. Why would I say something like that against Sheikh Hossein? It's Sheikh Hossein. You know, the Salafiyah love to stretch. They put all these extra O's and E's in the name. So, right, so Sheikh Hossein on YouTube is giving this fatwa. It's on YouTube. You can watch it. So he says, yes, 3%, for example. He says, 3% I can handle. All the Hossein fans would be like, what the hell is this Mufti saying against Sheikh Hossein? I'm not saying it. Sheikh Hossein himself is saying it. That he says about 3% is fine, but above that, no. But in general, the Hanafi of the past said if things were very low level, they produced a very low level of alcohol in them, they weren't fully fermented, therefore they were permissible. The classical drink that they had was called nabidh in the Prophet's time. But I would say, don't drink, yeah. I would say don't drink and drive. Okay, don't drink and drive. You might spill it, you know, it might spill. Right, so the point is, yes, alcohol generally is haram. The nabidh, it's a traditional drink. I don't know whether it exists today or not, but that was permitted according to the school of Kufa, Imam Abu Hanifa and his madhab. And today, some scholars, do take that way of thinking. Even the hardline, even Hossein from the Salafiyah. Is it Monday or is it Tuesday? Right, it is actually, sorry, I had written on the thing Monday nights with Mufti just because that was still stored on there when I opened up the Facebook. It is Tuesday. طبعا, claro que sí, claro que sí. It is, I'm a whole day late. Or I'm 6 days early, whichever. Perspective. It's all about perspective. It's all about. Now, yesterday my internet wasn't working, so I had to call an engineer out, only to discover what the issue was. Is my geniuses, or specifically my genius daughter, Zara, who's 4. What she'd done was crushed the wire as it passes by close to this one particular door. Well, there you go. So we've had that fixed. Eres mi favorito, Mufti, de verdad? De verdad? Alright. I'm touched, hermano, I'm touched. What's your views on the atheist's Quran? You know, that somebody sent me that. I was supposed to look at that. What do you think on Birmingham Pakistani's crime? Lolito. ¿Qué pasa, Lolito? Right, it is a shame. I mean, Birmingham has developed a bit of a reputation in the media for the crime, for the kind of, I think which is mainly drug rival crime. So between mainly, I think, like Pakistani groups and the stabbings, shootings, or things like this, or the kind of car. I mean, I see clips, I see viral clips sometimes, like on WhatsApp or on social media. I'll see clips and it'll say, this is in Birmingham. It is sad to see that these people are doing that. It's sad to see that these people come from actual, not like from generally most of the, I say this, although there is no such thing as a community, but the elusive kind of myth of community. But most people from a Pakistani or Asian background usually come from, they don't necessarily come from, I mean, maybe nowadays from utterly broken homes, but generally they don't. Most of the people. Yet, and they come from a background that is not so impoverished, yet, you know, they've turned to crime, they've turned to drugs. It is unfortunate. You know, may Allah guide them. It is a shame. I wish people, seriously, they can make a lot more money just through regular business. You know, entrepreneurship. I'm telling you that people could make much more money with no risk akin to the risks that they take or harms, like in the drug kind of, on the drug scene, in the crime scene, because it's just ridiculous. But people don't think like that. They don't think with a business acumen. But there's businesses out there. All you got to do is you just got to think like that. You got to think trade. You got to be a bit entrepreneurial, a bit risk taking. And people who are into these kind of crime and stuff like that are already kind of risk taking people. And I do wish that the council would provide more opportunities for people as well. I see a lot of clips about London as well. London, to be honest, the clips I see are horrific, and it's a shame. And I think really the government is to blame, especially about London and Birmingham by extension. But London, I think they've made so many police cuts that how do they expect the people to police those? It's not a laughing matter, but it does make you laugh. That said, I'd like to say something. I mean, I can say about Birmingham because I don't live in London, so I can't, but I'm assuming. You know, I've read a post the other day by Ustadz, and this post reflects the true sentiment of places like Birmingham too, I would say, and by extension. I read this post by Sheikh Ustadz Abdul Aziz Suraqah from Facebook. He's from America, I believe, but he spent many years in Morocco. I believe so, and I always see him online, like, so I always kind of look out for his posts, and he does a lot of translations, and I think his is it called Qandusi, or he has I think a publication kind of project, but where he translates a lot of works linked to tasawwuf. Now, Ustadh, he had a post written about, he returned to America recently, and he said that, it was a short post, but he said, I've returned to America, and he said that he sees a lot of, a kind of emptiness in people, a kind of, but the way he describes it is much more articulate. He says he sees a kind of depression, a kind of frustration in people he comes across, a kind of yearning almost, an anxiety. And then he said, despite all of that, they are still, generally, by and large, the average person is still quite pleasant when you come across them. But then he said a really interesting point, which I think could be written in gold. He said that although you would never know it if you lived on social media. And I read that and I thought to myself, wow, like that is so true. If you live on social media, you tend to only see hate, and you tend to see people, so they can be very brutal because they at a safe distance to do so. But I just thought that was an amazing, and I feel the same in places like Birmingham. It is if you're actually out, it's a very generally, people that you'll come across are generally almost always pleasant. But if you lived on social media, you would never know that. You'd think that it's bloody some kind of, it's run down, and but it's not like that at all. But yeah, so, right, is the Maliki Madhab the most liberal? It depends what that means. You see, I don't like these terms liberal and conservative because they were taken from a political paradigm. Paradigm. The word paradigm reminds me of somebody said we need to make a paradigm shift in thought. I think you all know who I'm talking about. Our good old friend Jannah. We're talking about the Honourable Sheikh Mullah Asrar Rashid. So I think I saw this clip going around of Mullah Asrar Rashid doing what is in the meme. It was like the Teresa dance. It was going like. But this clip that was going around was him condemning people for for kind of dancing on the Mawlid and nodding their heads. And then the clip was showing him in Malawi. He was doing that. Do the Teresa. Do the Teresa. Yeah. All fun and games. All fun and games. Right. So this one's to you, Mullah Asrar. Raise a cup, raise a glass. All right. So, what else is going on? Paradigm. That took me from. Right. So, yeah. So, I forgot what I was. The question. Right. Yeah. So these were taken from political paradigms about how should governments rule. Should governments be very authoritarian? Should they be exercising liberty? And from this was taken these notions of liberal versus conservative. In the West, it was applied to religion. Now, then Muslims have inherited this, and we've translated Islam as liberal is not non-strict and conservative is strict. But this is a fallacy, because by that definition, what would you say? Ibn Abbas radiallahu an was a liberal? Would you say, Ibn Abbas saying often taking an easy opinion in things, or would you say the Prophet was liberal? God forbid, because the Prophet himself, according to Aisha radiallahu anha, was never given a choice except chose the easy option. So would you say Imam Abu Hanifa was a liberal? Because Imam Abu Hanifa almost always was renowned for just being very of ease in his way. Not his madhab. His madhab, but him, Imam Abu Hanifa. So, yeah, I mean, I don't really like these definitions, but if you mean easygoing, relaxed, not control freak, then yes, I believe the Maliki Madhab is definitely very relaxed. I think some people have tried to superimpose that control freak mentality upon the madhab. They have tried, but they failed miserably. But they tried. Try. You got to try, Right, so they have tried. But like if you take food products as an example, all food within the Maliki Madhab is halal by default or not haram. With the exception of pig and the exception of animals that have already been killed. So dead animals. And the exception of animals offered to other gods. Otherwise, nothing is haram. What? Astaghfirullah. So technically you could eat a lion. I'm not saying you would, but you could eat lion meat. But none of these things are actually haram in the school of Medina. All birds in the sky, anything in the sea, amphibians, that which lives in the sea and on the land, crocodiles, predatory beasts, wolves, tigers, lions, anything, elephants, kangaroos, nothing is haram to eat except pig, that's it. Or animals which are already dead. Even insects, so sometimes you get, people don't generally eat insects unless you're in a particular part of the world. But so sometimes you get certain extracts from certain insects that is used as colouring and stuff like this. It is halal according to the school of Medina. So somebody saying banks are halal. This is Sa'ad eating banks. Yeah, I think we need to redefine our definition of eating. So humans are halal to eat according to the Maliki Madhab. Musa al-Ashari says, funny joke. No, humans are not halal to eat, you idiot. There used to be a brother used to teach alongside me many years ago. So he's passed away now, may Allah have mercy on him. But often if you went past his class, he would be sitting there with one leg on the chair and it'd be like this, it'd be like, idiot! You idiot! So, Naam, Imran Khan's going to save Pakistan, or Imam Mahdi. I don't know who Imam Mahdi is. Parvez Abida, wa alaykum assalam. Ahlan wa sahlan, ahlan wa sahlan. Right. Imran Khan is doing some amazing things. Those of you that are unaware, he's one of the things I just heard today, he's going to scrap the overseas Pakistani card. So we're going to be able to, if you want to, I don't know what the system is, but they're going to set something up. The other thing is that he's actually just done, and I think it's launching tomorrow or this week, that he's opened up a border for the Sikhs to visit the holy places of Guru Nanak and things like this without a border. So he's opened up a corridor which is called the Corridor of Peace, and people can come through from India on pilgrimage or on visits, holy special visits, without, obviously, I mean, they will have a process, but it's not a visa. They don't need to apply, and it's facilitated movement with ease. It's actually groundbreaking to do that between India and Pakistan. I do wish India and Pakistan were kind of, they had that. This is a step in that direction of having freedom of movement and freedom of and ease of movement between the two, because in essence they are really, it is really just one nation in essence. Ultimately, Hindustan, phir bhi dil hai Hindustani. That's the and I don't see why people can't move towards having a more peaceful kind of coexistence, inshallah. And I think that's a great step. Maulvis in Pakistan won't allow peace. That is true, though. The Maulvis in Pakistan and the, some of the kind of hardline Hindutva, Hindu right-wing extremists in India. It's these extremists. I'll tell you one thing, though. These extremists would really get on with each other. They think exactly the same, except they're just different faiths, that's all. But yeah, the Hindutva extremists of India and the Maulvi extremists from Pakistan, all nutcases. But yeah, I mean, put that aside. I hope people will move forward. You know what was interesting is I was watching some and listening to some lectures on the Urdu language. It is really fascinating, and I'm kind of curious. On YouTube, there's a few lectures. One by a I've forgotten who it is now. I think it's something Bailey, but it's in Urdu. It's he must have written it in Urdu, but he was from pre-partition times. Some Englishman over there. But there's another work on there as well by an Urdu professor about the history of Urdu, and it's really fascinating that unlike what we think, Urdu seems to have been around much longer than people have thought it was. So, we're looking at the works of people like Amir Khusro and stuff like this, we're talking 500-600 years back, even before 700 years ago, 800. So they believe that this language, which generally was referred to as either Hindavi or Hindustani, is that language pretty much, or what they called Khadi Boli. Now, Khadi Boli or Hindustani was the main kind of usage. But what got me fascinated is why they chose the name Urdu for it at a later date. So you see around the late 1700s, really actually the 1800s, this term Urdu becomes popular. So it is used by 1-2 poets, and in fact even the first translation of the Quran into Urdu by, I think his name is Abdul Qadir, which was in the early 1804 or something like that. He writes that this tarjama is going to be in, and he mentions Hindustani, and I don't think he uses the word Urdu either. And the thought that this was what they call Zabane Urdu Mualla, Urdu meaning a kind of army compound, an army, the armies, where we get the English word horde and Urdu. That's where it's from. This is quite misleading because the army compound, this is a Turkish word, Urdu, like that, to mean, you see, the Mughal armies by that time for hundreds of years were not speaking. You see, they've been speaking Farsi for hundreds of years, and by that time they must have definitely spoke Hindustani, because the Mughal armies for centuries before were speaking Farsi. So it doesn't make sense that they were speaking something so foreign that the natives said, this is Zubane Urdu Mualla, this is the... So it seems that people, maybe in the face of colonialism, tried to recreate something. And they recreated this name. So what exactly were they doing? I don't know, but it's really fascinating. Urdu does have a lot of... Urdu is Hindustani, except it has a lot more Arabic and Farsi exhausted into, just really pumped into it. So that's the difference. Otherwise, what most people speak probably in several parts of India and today, which is really, if you want to call it Hindi, or it's that Hindustani is the true name for it. Cool. Do you consider the huge number of madrasas in Pakistan the main reason of extremism? I would say that the madrasa system in Pakistan, I don't know about the main reason, but it's definitely a sustenance model for extremism. So the madrasa system needs to have something done about it. Either they need to be shut down. Okay, that's the extreme response. Or they need to be regulated. Or they need professionals kind of to teach in these kind of things. People who've had a very broad learning. But these regular madrasas, you see, on one hand, they do something good. They provide a free education, which is excellent, and credit where credit is due. They even provide a very, low level, but a bursary, free of, they provide a bursary to the students. They provide free clothing. They provide free food. In a country like Pakistan, which is poverty stricken, so many people would have no education if it wasn't for madrasas. So many people who can't afford anything just send their children to madrasas, where they get free accommodation, free clothing, free food, free education, learn to read and write, become a hafiz of the Quran, all of these things. Now, that is all amazing. And I think that is brilliant. And that needs to be, that should be commended. The problem is that what they're teaching, you see, a lot of the Maulvis that teach in some, not all of them, but a lot of them have a lot of hate inside them. And this is the problem, that these Maulvis then, and they've picked up that hate from their teachers. And Maulvis and sometimes religious people can be the most hateful in society. This is really a sad phenomenon, but it's true. Maulvis are sometimes the worst of people. They're like full of so much hate and bitter towards normal people. As shocking as that sounds, it's actually true. And they then kind of inject all of that venom into these into these students, who then go on to become more. It's like a virus that just spreads and spreads. So I think, yes, I think it's a huge problem. I won't lie, it's cancerous right now, but I can see the good it has. So I don't know how they're going to go about dealing with that, but I think Pakistan is a mess to some extent. Imran Khan is doing a hell of a lot to fix things. I hope he can fix some of that too. Cool. What is going on? What are your views on the two-nation theory? Would you agree that partition was a disaster? I, in many ways, do wish that that Pakistan was still India today. Huh? Gaddar! Gaddar! Revoke his Pakistani NICOP card. Right, so I do think that, if it was, because in essence, it was one. You understand? In essence, Hindustan is our origin for Pakistanis. We are, in essence, Hindustani. So I don't see why it became the way it did. But that said, I can see reasons. I can see benefits as well, in the sense that there was a hell of a lot of, and there is a hell of a lot of oppression to Muslims in parts that are heavily Hindu. Even today, the kind of it's shocking that like the beef brigades, they'll go around and murder people for eating beef. For God's sake. So this is the sad thing in India. So I can see the benefits of Pakistan. I don't know. It's happened now anyway. So what is it? Jo beet gayi wo baat gayi. That's actually a poem from what's his name? What's his name? Harivansh, the father of Amitabh Bachchan. That's one of his. He was a poet. Many people don't know that. Shri Harivansh Bachchan Rao or something. What was his full name? But he's got famous quite a few poems. Let's take some questions, people. What are your views on the recent Dina Tokio article and Muhammad Hijab response by Johnny? It's Johnny Rafik, people. Hey, Johnny. I gotta love it. Yahya Khan, Salam Mufti. I'm tuning in for the first video. Love the way you articulate. Shukran, shukran, shukran. Much love and respect. Did you get your response? Chan Vakaria, Ahlan wa Sahlan. I'm not sure what the question was, so I don't know what the response is. I saw some question about can we rob a bank. Are you buzzing? I don't understand. I mean, I know I don't say haram to many things, but are you taking the mick? Are you taking mick? Can we rob a bank? Could you summarize? Right, this Dina Tokio. I've been asked quite a bit recently about this. हो क्या रहा है यार ये Dina कौन है यार ये Dina Tokio कौन है यार. So this I've commented before. It was on the centenary show, the 100th show, about her taking off the hijab. So I've done that discussion there. But I was sent a clip yesterday by our good friends in Dawah. Our good friends in Dawah. Da'watul haqq ilallah ta'ala. Right, so that is Muhammad Hijab and Ali Da'wah. Na'am, na'am, ya ikhwah, ikhwatul kiram. نحن اليوم ندعوكم إلى الله مخلصين له الدين. Right, so this is, sorry, that's my preacher mode. I should be like this, like, نعم يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم فإنه سيأتين عليكم يوم لا. Sorry, I'm getting carried away. Right, so I saw this clip. Right, so I saw this clip where they were sitting down reacting to a video. I think it was an article, reacting to an article. My understanding, I haven't read the article myself, but my understanding was Dina Tokio was promoting this article by somebody else, who I don't know who that somebody is, about Muslim women marrying non-Muslim men. So this problem come back to the marriage, the marriage. And the marrying, the birds and the bees, this, it's a big problem, this. Right, so the question was that, so some woman had written an article saying, green light, jao, ja Simran, ja, जी ले अपनी जिंदगी, go, marry Johnny and James, marry the James. Right, so this was some article that was being promoted allegedly by Dina Tokio, I'm not sure who else, about marrying non-Muslim men. So what is the solution? Solution. Right, so this is the question. So I watched the many Muslim men aren't really Muslim, they're just Pakis, so why not? I can't say that, this one become the racist, Right, so, but I suppose I can say, I mean, I too, oh, I had on a side note, I sent off, for this DNA thing, I thought, oh, this will be interesting for me and my family. And they sent it back saying, having a huge part of discolored. This was the detailed report of Ancestry DNA. They go, there's the whole subcontinent in green, and it said, "Yep, you're 100% from here." I was like, yeah, thanks. I think I figured that part out myself. I mean, they just like the huge, like they had India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Nepal, everything, Sri Lanka, everything in green, and it just said, "Yep, you're 100% from South Asia." I was like, yeah, thanks, man. Your thanks. You know, this analysis, you know, this tahqiq. That tahqiq is equivalent to the tahqiq of a Molvi on some research issue. Then I was like, I don't get it. Is this a joke? Is that? I thought I was going to get some kind of detail or something, a region, or and then it turns out that these websites, by the way, so I'll save some of you guys some money and time. These websites don't specialize in South Asians. So these really popular websites, so they don't have the data to give you the specifics. I was like, so they seem to specialize in Europeans. So you're like, but then you can actually upload to an Indian specific certain websites, which will give you a thorough breakdown. So I got my breakdown. I was like, can you? Here's the DNA. Let me find out if my mum and dad were cousins. So I upload it. So I got a DNA. So they ask you, where are you ethnically from? So I said Kashmir, and I said all of these things, and I put it on there, and it came back with a detailed analysis a few days later. It said, you're 100%, it said, no, you're 100% from Punjab. I was like, all right, thanks. But then I thought about it, and I thought, right, so I suppose the caste system, you know, the Jat system, so I suppose they are ultimately Punjabi. Right, so people, I get distracted. Let's get back to this issue. Right, so can Muslim women marry non-Muslim men? Now, the general understanding is that they can't. Muslims don't marry non-Muslims. This is the general understanding. But I watched this clip, and in this clip, Muhammad Hijab and Ali Dawah, more so Muhammad Hijab, I suppose, but both of them, they were saying how this is kufr, saying this is disbelief, and then sticking with it after having the evidence makes you a kafir. But you're not a kafir by just saying it, but once you have iqamatul hujjah, you have the evidence established against you. And they read the verses of the Quran. I think the La tumsiku bi'isam al-kawafir, I think he never read that one. I think he read a different one, but that's one of the verses. And La hunna hillun lahum wa la hun yahilluna lahum. So the point is that these Muslim women are not halal for them. They are not halal for them. He read this verse of the Quran. So fine, and he said, look, I've done iqamatul hujjah. I've established the dalil. Now, if people go on with this, they will be, then he was intimating that they will be a kafir. Right, so what is the reality? I want to say, well, first of all, I did agree with... break. I applied the blick here, right? They had a point to make here. I'm not saying I agree. They probably got happy listening to that. Probably like, what? Or confused more like, huh? Mufti Abu Layth agreeing? No, I agree that they followed on by saying that this lady, one Dina Tokio, but and this other lady, I'm not sure who the other lady is, they knew who she was, are not qualified in Islam to issue fatwa. And they should not really be speaking about the ahkam of the Sharia. As in, they shouldn't be issuing fatwas when they haven't studied Islam. If they wear hijab and like if they do hijab tutorials or makeup artists or I don't know whatever they do, they fashion. I think I don't know, clothes designing or stuff like this, or they may be models and stuff like this. Then that's what they do. They may advise on that, but for them to say, well, let me advise you on the Sharia of Islam, is wrong. And I agree that they are actually right on this point, that Muhammad Hijab and Ali Dawah, that is a correct point, that people who have not studied Islam shouldn't really be issuing fatwa on Islam. It's different if they're sharing fatwas. They can share fatwas of people. They can say, look, the Fatwa Board of Europe has issued this fatwa, or Sheikh bin Bayya has issued this fatwa, or Fulan has issued this. But they themselves shouldn't be saying, look, I understand the Quran to be saying this and therefore teaching like... I mean, they shouldn't be doing that because, in all honesty, they don't understand the Quran, which is true, they don't. And they haven't really, I would imagine, that in any meaningful way studied the sciences of Islam. So I think on that point of saying that these people should stay in their lane, just talk about fashion, talk about hijab, talk about whatever the tutorials, makeup, whatever it is they do, but they shouldn't start becoming scholars of Islam. I think that was a valid point, and justice, credit where credit is due. So I would endorse that statement, as in that was a factual statement in which you can't really fault them on. They had a valid point to stand on. However, coming to the main crux of their argument, them saying that this is kufr, it is not kufr. That is incorrect to say that in my, and I say in my understanding, and I present my understanding, because the verses of the Quran that they are presenting, you see, the verses of the Quran are either general, they're either am, as in Arabic we call it am, like they're general, for out there for usage, as in they're unrestricted, or they have certain derogations, certain exemptions made from them. Once, which is called khas or takhsisul am. Once, and according to usul of the Sharia, once a verse of the Quran has had takhsis, it has had some exception, certain people have been exempt, then that opens the door for other things, other people to be exempt as well. Okay, so hence you see that once an am إذا خصص منه البعض, if some khas has some takhsis or some exemption has been made, then other exemptions can be made. So for example, you could take a general ruling of the Quran, like let's say people, there could be a verse about praying salah, for example, or fasting, but then there's an exception for those who are ill, or those who are traveling, or those who are... So there's an exception. So it shows that these verses do not always apply in that context, like they have a context to them. That's what I'm trying to say. Now, when it comes to marriages between Muslims and non-Muslims, first of all, we have to look at the term marriages, okay? Nikah. Ibn Abdul Bar, who was Hafidh al-Maghrib, the don of the Maliki Madhab, right, and of Muslim Spain, who was around almost just over 900 years ago. He lived mainly in Cordoba, and he went on to become the judge at Lisbon in Portugal, modern day Portugal today. He was Hafidh al-Maghrib. He was the great master of hadith of the entire Western Muslim world. He writes in his book Tamheed that there is no dispute amongst Muslims that nikah of the kuffar, we have no objection to them. If they become Muslim, they will not be asked to renew their nikah. And this is an important point. We need to understand this. Right, so if you pay attention here, if a couple embraced Islam, they will not be asked to renew their marriage. And he says that we know countless companions who embraced Islam as a couple, they were never asked to renew their nikah, ever. Okay, so this is an important point. Why is this an important point? Because it shows that even though, and Ibn Abdul Barr does say, unless of course that nikah is totally impermissible in Islam. So for example, let's say it was an incestuous relationship. In some cultures they used to allow incest. So like in some of the Persian cultures, people were allowed to marry their actual mums or their sisters or their biological sisters or daughters. If it was something like that and they became Muslim, then that nikah wouldn't be allowed according to Islam. But bar these very few exceptions which are prohibited, generally they will not be asked. As far as renewing a nikah, that is not demanded or requested at all. Okay, so let's get that clear. What that shows us is that their nikah already have a validity to them. Okay, that shows us, it demonstrates that. The second point is Ibn Abdul Barr writes that what if one of the couple became Muslim and the other didn't? He says that here people disagreed on what to do, and he shows this. And he says that, however, listen to this, Ibn Abdul Barr says, however, many couple of whom one proceeded, like beat the other to Islam, like let's say the wife became Muslim first, or the husband became first Muslim, and he did hijrah or she did hijrah to Medina. He said there are several cases where the other couple, the husband or the wife, came after, but they got back together and they were not asked to renew the nikah. And a good example is the Prophet's daughter. So her husband, As, comes after so many years to Medina, and he comes and he visits his wife. He goes to visit her, and he talks with her and everything, and it's been years, and he's not a Muslim, and she actually offers him protection, and she says that and the Prophet endorses her protection, says that nobody can touch him, nobody can harm him, and he's not a Muslim. And then he embraces Islam later on, but he's not asked to renew his nikah. He's not asked to, but the fact that he went to her and he was with her and things like this, as she was, i.e. his wife, she is in, and then they got back together, demonstrates that, okay, so not only was their nikah valid before, but even if they separated and they had a different faith and she was a Muslim, but years later when they got back together and he embraced Islam, there was no problem, and neither were they asked to repeat the nikah. So this much is agreed upon. Then we have a disagreement. What if one of them does not accept Islam and the other does? So one refuses to accept Islam. And in this case, I know the case I mentioned before, the other couple later on does accept it. But what if in this case they don't? So the husband or the wife does not accept Islam at all, categorically. But the other couple does. Now what's interesting is Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah has a book. I did actually print out. I'll tell you who has on this issue. The European Fatwa Council has discussed it at length. Sheikh Abdullah Juday from the UK has written a book on this. Sheikh Yusuf al-Qardawi has a detailed response on this as well. And Sheikh Abdullah bin Bayya has also written in much detail on this matter. But this comes down to that you see Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah has a book, Ahkamu Ahli Dhimma. In there he speaks that the people who are non-Muslims and their rulings, but they live in Muslim lands. He speaks about when one of them embraces Islam and the other one doesn't. So he says when the wife becomes Muslim but the husband does not. What is the ruling? And he demonstrates that there's nine people, 9. Not one, not two, 9 different positions. Okay. All led by major ulama of Islam. Okay. Going back to the Sahaba, coming right through. So major scholars, these are not normal. One opinion being that they separate straight away, this is haram. That's to the other opinion that they can stay together as husband and wife. You have an opinion in between that you have from some of the Salaf that they, as so long as the state does not separate them, they can stay together. I believe that's also one of the Hanbali opinions within the Hanbali Madhab. Then there's opinions. I'm just trying to say وقعت الفرقة في الحين وإن أسلم. Right, I believe Ibn Shihab al-Zuhri is one of the people who transmits, if I can find it here. His narration states that, or in one of his narrations, that they can stay together. Let me see. See, and it mentions sorry, just one moment. Right, now, so for example, there's وروى هذه القصة عبد الرزاق عن الخطمي قال أسلمت امرأة من أهل الحيرة. So a woman became Muslim ولم يسلم زوجها, and her husband did not become Muslim. فكتب فيها عمر بن الخطاب أن خيروها. So Umar ibn al-Khattab wrote to them, give her a choice. فإن شاءت فارقته وإن شاءت قرت عنده. He said, give her a choice. If she wants, she can leave him. If she wants, she can stay with him. Now, Ibn Abi Shayba brings from Ibrahim al-Nakha'i that that Ibrahim al-Nakha'i says their nikah remains valid. There's another, Ibn Abi Shayba brings another riwayah from Hassan that a Christian woman became Muslim, has a Christian husband, so they wanted to snatch her away from him. And they returned to Umar, and Umar gave her a choice, said it's up to her. They said there's a riwayah of this from Ali radiallahu an. This is one of the. There's another riwayah from Umar saying the same thing. Just trying to see about. Right, so there's quite a few actually, but the point being that there were 9 positions that you have in this, right, ranging from the fact that she can stay with him to the fact that no, she separates, to opinions that so long as the state don't get involved, it's their own business, nobody can kind of separate them. So all of these are positions of ulama of Islam right now. And these opinions have been transmitted. Let me see. So, and Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah brings these narrations from Umar ibn al-Khattab, by the way. And he brings these kind of... right, so from Zuhri, Ibn Abi Shayba transmits from Ma'mar, from Zuhri, in Aslamat, if a woman becomes Muslim, walam yuslim zawjaha, fahuma ala nikahihima, then, and a husband does not become Muslim, they remain upon their nikah, ma lam yufarriq baynahuma sultan. So long as the king does not get involved, they stay upon their nikah. And then there's one opinion that she can live with him, but they don't have sexual intimacy. That's a separate opinion. So that one is transmitted from Dawood, the Zahiri. And also Hamad ibn Abi Sulaiman said she can stay with him. So my point of saying this is that there are several opinions. I believe Sheikh Abdullah Juday had also brought a few more opinions. He had brought about 13 opinions in total. Now, the reason I'm mentioning this is to show that there is a difference of opinion. Sheikh Abdullah bin Bayya today, who is an amazing Maliki Don, has given the fatwa. In addition with these other people like Sheikh Abdullah Juday, like Sheikh Yusuf Qardawi, the Islamic Fatwa Council of Europe, they've all given the fatwa saying that if a woman converted to Islam and her husband was a non-Muslim, she does have the choice to live with him if she wants to. That's the fatwa already given. This is not kufr. Now they may say, well, in this case they already had a nikah whilst they were non-Muslim, so it's different to a woman marrying a non-Muslim from scratch as a Muslim. I would accept that the scenario is different from that angle. However, ultimately it is still linked, because ultimately it is about the nikah of a Muslim woman with a non-Muslim man. And what I'm trying to say is these issues are issues of fiqh. I'm not saying that people should be doing that. But what I am saying is it's not disbelief. Issues of fiqh are not kufr. They are a matter of interpretation. They are a matter of looking at the sharia, discussing, and there is always much more breadth, much more diversity than most of these mulvis let on. Okay, or more than most of them actually know. So that's what I would say. Anybody who's really interested in the topic can buy Sheikh Abdullah Juday's book. He has a detailed book, or you can reach out to him. He's in the UK, I believe, and you can ask him for detail. But that's all I wanted to kind of put in there, to say that look, there is diversity. This is not a clear-cut mas'ala, and it is not a kafir Muslim mas'ala. Although I do accept that the majority of the Muslims do not accept these things as common practices. In the past, maybe they were more so accepting. So India was a good example that some of the Muslims had written books justifying that Muslim men could marry Hindu women. In fact, and it was based on, and these fatwas were there even at the time of King Akbar, when he married Jodha, who was a Hindu, Jahangir, who had a Hindu wife. Many of the Muslim rulers in India had Hindu wives. Now, in their time, I believe I came across a reference to a book written by a Muslim scholar of India at that time justifying this. Although today, so I think in the past these things may have had more of a practical value, that they may have existed. Today Muslims seem to have, this is all lost in our heritage, and they seem to have become a lot more culturally strict about these things, so, and non-accepting. So I acknowledge that the vast majority of Muslims will not accept these opinions. And I'm not saying that we need to be promoting these opinions. I'm not saying that in this case. I'm just saying it's not kufr. I also acknowledge that Muslim men, especially in the UK, there is a huge problem with that Muslim men, for some reason, have a kind of deficit and inadequacy when it comes to relationships. And you just have to, I say this as an unfortunate thing. I don't know what it is. I think there could be huge sociological studies done to figure that out, but that the young, and I would narrow it down even more so to the Pakistani young man in the UK, that there is a huge relationship problem in how to handle relationships. I just don't know what is wrong there, but something is massively wrong. I'm not putting the blame on just Pakistani young men and saying that women don't have a role in relationships breaking down. I'm sure they do as well. But I'm just trying to point out a phenomenon that does exist. I don't want to be too stereotypical, but cool. I hope that's some food for thought. The main point was that I wanted to say is it's not kufr. So they definitely got that part. I would disagree with them strongly on that. It does not take you out the fold of Islam. But I did agree with them on the part that common people, or people who, when I say common, I mean they may be celebrities or whatever, but people who are non-specialists, non-trained in Islam, should not be generally throwing out rulings about Islam, because obviously they don't know what they're talking about, even if they do happen to be correct on certain things. So I do agree with that. What I would encourage these people to do is rather read up what other people have said and then share their stuff if you want to, or quote them, refer to them. Don't do it. It's like me trying to write something on, I don't know, like on trying to contest something about some kind of new medical research. Just sharing my opinion on, I think it's like it ought to. I think this drug is useless. Say, have you done any research on it? No. Do you even know what the drug is? No. Have you taken? Do you know anybody who's taken? No. Acha, acha, acha. You know that. Tu kon main khamkha. Who are you? I'm just useless. Just passing by. Let's take some questions, people. Classic Oedipal Electra complex. Marcus Aurelius. I'm not so sure with the Pakistani male if it's the Oedipal complex. I don't think so. But I mean, I think one thing that I would advise most people, I advise them time and time again, if you are about to embark on relationships, make sure you have your personal space. Okay? Because it really breaks down a hell of a lot of relationships. Minimum requirements for Jannah. What? Guys, what should the minimum requirements be? Seyyed, want some help? What should we go? Alright, let's start off with Seyyed. Let's begin with, I don't know. What should we begin with? Whatever. What's your height? Whatever it is, we'll say the minimum requirement is an inch higher. Or what's your qualifications? We'll just put it a grade higher. Say minimum master's level. It's got. Sorry, mate. You fell short, I'm afraid. Gonna get turned back from the gates. The minimum. Don't worry about it, Seyyed. I'll have a word. I'll see what I can do to get you in. Don't worry about it. So, right, what's going on? 4-letter minimum requirements. You gotta have a 4-letter surname. Ad is too short. 3 letters. 3 letters, my friend, is the Trinity. Everybody knows that. It's a Trinity. Are you supporting the Trinity? Huh? You pagan? Right, so that's the 5 pillars right now. So look, people, we need to stop obsessing about when it comes to things like Jannah. Inshallah, look, the Lord is merciful. Look at what Allah says in the Quran. وَمَا يَفْعَلُ اللَّهُ بِعَذَابِكُمْ إِن شَكَرْتُمْ. Just be grateful. Why would Allah want to punish you? That's what he says. See, that it is our concept of God that has messed us up. We picture God to be this kind of obsessive control freak who's like, oh, that's not how God is. So you can watch my clip. It's on YouTube called Is God Cruel? In that I answer this question and show what was created first, universe or earth. So the earth was first created and then the universe came. Right, I don't know. Oh, right, you're trying to say there's verses in the Quran that imply. Yes, because the verses in the Quran are not trying to... they're not trying to teach you cosmology. They're just trying to teach you some kind of moral or perspective at the time, or it's trying to just show you wonder in the creation. It's not trying to teach you astronomy or cosmology or how the universe kind of evolved or things like this. How did the beard become such an important aspect of the deen? That's useless. I mean, it's a what that is it's a good question about an aspect that is really just silly. The beard has become an aspect of the deen because people music to my ears because people have got nothing better to do. Mutanabbi, the great Arab poet, he has a poem in which he says that aghayatud dini an tuhfu shawaribakum, that is this the maxim, is this what your deen is about, just trimming the mustache? Is that what your deen is about? aghayatud dini an tuhfu shawaribakum ya ummatan dhahikat min jahliha al-umam. That what a people, Muslims, who the world is laughing at. That's what he says. That is this what your deen is, just obsess over trimming the tash. He says you guys have become the joke for civilization. Like people mock you, ridicule you. So what are my thoughts on Bakkah being Petra and not Mecca? I think that's a flawed argument. You know, that is a flawed argument. I did watch a show a while back on, I forgot his name, was it Holland or something? But anyway, speaking about some professor, speaking about how Petra, ancient Petra in modern day Syria, how that was, and parts of Jordan, these places were the original Makkah, because Makkah wasn't really known and certain people don't mention it. I think that's very weak. It's very, I think with a bit of funding and the right people behind it, could be easily be debunked. You find a lot of the civilizations that we speak about from biblical sources were around the Arabian Peninsula. A good example is like the Midianites, to do with Shu'aib alayhi salam. You find them and their pottery still exists, and it's still found. If you look up Midianite kind of pottery, it will be found dating to that era in northwest Saudi Arabia. And this is where Moses visits, and because that's most likely his father-in-law, Shu'aib. I mean, it is Shu'aib in the Quran, but whether that is the Jethro of the Bible, there is a debate. But the point is that the city, the Midianites, where Moses goes to with these people, they did exist. They did have these, and their civilization, their artifacts have been discovered, you know, in the not so far past. And the pottery that they would have, the specific designs, the kind of jewelry and things like this that they would make. In fact, one of the things that Moses, they say, would do, that when he went with the people, was some kind of circumambulation, like some kind of going round. And some people have argued that he was going to Mecca to do when he was taking Bani Israel. It's an argument. In fact, that was one of the arguments made by, this is an excellent book, by the way, The Miracles. You can't really see it because of the way the Miracles of the Exodus by Colin Humphreys. And in fact, he discusses that in there as well, about how that one of the things he describes when he's taking them out to the desert, he says he's taking the Israelites out to the desert to do worship and go round. And what was this act of going round? And he likens it to how the pilgrimage that Muslims have with the Kaaba was this way he was taking them, because modern kind of findings, and as he argues in the book, that they were in that Jabal al-Tur, Mount Sinai, was not in the Sinai Peninsula, but in northwest Saudi Arabia, and it was Jabal Badr. So that's where Mount Tur is. So from there was he going from in the Hijaz to Mecca. Was that the kind of pilgrimage? It's food for thought, but it would make sense, being from the offspring of Abraham. But my point is that this Mecca, this technique of saying, well, Makkah was not such a kind of well-known city, that may be the case. It was not so well known for the Romans. It was not really so important to the Persians, and that is understandable because they were people of huge empires and dynasties. They had no idea that Makkah would rise, or from Makkah would come a message that would rise to such fame and power that it would literally engulf, envelop, and really subsume their entire kingdoms and dynasties in just the centuries to come. So, but I feel that's a weak argument nevertheless. Right, okay. Right, so they say it was not well known, but I understand that it was not well known. But I'm sure today, if the Saudis allowed certain anthropological research, archaeological findings, they could date back a lot of the things to that kind of time. I'm sure they could. The problem is the Saudis don't really allow a lot of this archaeological research, which is a shame. But yeah, but then what isn't a shame about the Saudis? Right. Have I read the study Quran? Any thoughts on it? I haven't read the study Quran, but my thoughts on it are, I think it would be a good kind of study compilation. I think it would be a great project that has been Professor Lumbard, who's Joseph Lumbard. I am friends with him on Facebook, and I have read a lot of his kind of posts, and I've seen 1-2 of his videos and things like this, listened to some of his lectures, and I actually listened to a whole interview on the study Quran by him, and he was speaking about how this whole project spanning over a decade, the hard work that went into it, and how it was just marginalized. I feel it's unfair. I feel that Muslims, we are the greatest impediment to ourselves. Like, here is a work that, I mean, I don't have the study Quran at home, but so I don't have the exact number of pages in front of me, but I did, when I was looking through it, I was aware, but I'm pretty sure, but the size of the book, now you take that book, the detail, the incredible intricate detail they've put in there, the research, it's like tafsir, it's like explanations, other things, written by academics, not just, your average mulvi, like people who are academics, okay? Now, they did this work, they published this book after over a decade of hard work. When they published it, within, I think, was it 2 days? It had a refutation on it. Now, or I think within 1 day it had a refutation, which meant that it was impossible for anybody to have actually read it. You see, you couldn't have actually read the entire tafsir. Like, there's no way. Like, if I release a book and you've released its refutation, so that meant that they were just lying in wait, anticipating the moment it comes out, we're going to refute them. And the whole refutation was that, well, what's his name? Seyyed Hossein Nasr is a perennialist, and this one verse of the Quran, Inna Dina Indallahi Islam. He says that the deen, according to Allah, is submission. He ought to say the deen is Islam. For God's sake, is that it? Is that it? Look, of course the deen to Allah, Islam is submission, so submission. What's wrong with that? And they say, but that lends kind of credibility to his perennial thoughts. But look, normal people, you're reading way too into this. Normal people do not. Oh, thanks, Deborah. It has just under 2,000 pages. I appreciate that. 1,988. So just under 2,000 pages. Now, you see, normal people do not read into things like that. You need to just relax yourselves, chill out a little, let this work benefit Muslims. I actually think it would be amazing. I haven't read it, but I would definitely think it's good. I would not criticize it like that. I would not condemn it. I would say people should read it. People should benefit from it. This was written by people who were academics, who were people, many of whom had converted to Islam, and they were professionals, and they brought a very refreshing understanding. So, and they wrote it in a way that you can study the Quran as you're going through, hence the study Quran. So I support their hard work. If they made 1-2 mistakes in the book, I'm just saying, if they did, I haven't read it. If they did, who cares? Like, it's just, look, what book doesn't have some mistakes? It's not about, like, people go with, you know, the Abdullah Yusuf Ali translation, which was over a century old. That used to be published by Saudi, and the archaic English, and that had things which they all disagreed in. And he himself, I believe, was he like Ismaili, which is a splinter sect of the Shia. So if people were okay with him, and now they're saying, well, Seyyed, Hossein, Nasr, you know, yeah, I'd say just relax yourselves, people. What is this with this? You know, like, you know, it's like we don't let anybody get up on the ladder. We pull them down. You know, I once read that somewhere he said, why will Muslims not be able to get out of hell? He said, because every time one tries to climb out, the other one will just pull him back. This is the problem with us. We're too our minds are poisoned, unfortunately. So I would say, I would encourage that. Yes, I would support the thing in general. I'm not saying if it's made a mistake, fine. I don't need to support a mistake. I'm sure even they don't support mistakes. But my point is that it's a huge work. Give it the credit it's due, or produce something like onto it. You know, like either say, look, guys, here's a better version. We say, no, don't do it. But what should I do then? Oh, no, just don't do anything. You know, it's like I on Instagram, I did these, I think I'll try and do that weekly, some quick, rapid response, kind of rapid fire rounds, where I'm just taking something like a dozen questions and answering. And so somebody had asked about masturbation, as they often do. The issue, no matter where it is, it always comes back right there. No matter what the topic is, it's going to come home. Chicken's coming home to roost. That's what it is. So it always ends up with something like masturbation. And so somebody said, oh, and so as usual, I was cracking a joke. And then I said, look, it's not haram. And then some people were kind of writing on Instagram. Instagram is tough, I tell you. Because, you know, Facebook has still a mature audience. Facebook has just, I mean, Instagram just has pure young people on it. I mean, I'm sure it has mature people on it as well, but it's dominated by just young people. And it's difficult, honestly. Interacting with young people it can be challenging because, I mean, on one hand, you do get a lot of support and you can help people and you can make that connection. On the other hand, they can be incredibly rude. Incredibly kind of, they're just a different, a different kind of generation, man. They're just a different generation. So the point is that, so a lot of people jump on, but this one person jumped, oh, but isn't that, oh, what the hell, honey? How can you say that, honey? A clear argument for why his his parents just chose the option to masturbate instead of cohab. That would have been a perfect solution for him. All those unborn children, it's like, well, bye bye, bye bye, bye bye. Right, so what is it? Is it what's the, in an average, is it over 1 million? 1 million little tiny sperms? Is it? Right, so Yeah, so coming back to the so somebody says, Astaghfirullah. So my point was that, look, and he said, you should tell them to fast. It's like, see, this is the thing. We don't have a solution. We're a people, a solution-less people. We just say, don't. Okay, what should I do then? Oh, do nothing. Well, I don't know, nothing doesn't sound as appealing, you know. It's like, well, you can do this, or you can do nothing. You know, I don't know, you're not quite selling it to me. You know, it's, maybe you can take this up a notch and, I know, okay, why don't you fast? It's like, what? Why would I fast? I mean, that's like, what? Basically, you're saying to the person, why don't you just don't eat food then? The guy's like, what? I'm already frustrated, yeah. You want to increase my frustration, and so now I'm like worried about that and food. So this is the kind of Muslim solution, which I think we need to move away from. Or in the wise words of Mullah Asrar, Jani, we need to have a paradigm shift in our thinking. Paradigm shift. Okay, so people, what are some questions? Let's take some questions. Get money, get honey. Ew, naughty, sad. Some girls dressed to impress. All right. What's going on? Is process of pregnancy, birth still considered to be a miracle as an amazing phenomenon, but within realms of cause of effect? Sorry, I'm trying to understand this question. Is the process of birth still considered to be a miracle as it's an amazing phenomenon, but within the realm of cause and effect? Abdullah Mahir. How do you think she got pregnant? Acha. Dua kiye hain. She got pregnant because I made dua for her. Acha. I see. If you've not been busy, then shayad, which Peer Sahib have you been taking her to? Because somebody, my friend, somebody has been a little busy there. Somebody's been very hardworking, very putting their back into it, this one big problem, so yes. So I think it is a miracle. It's a miracle of birth. That is true. It is, the miracle of life is amazing. But yes, of course, my friend, it has cause and effect. Cause and effect. Right, so what else have we got? What's going on, people? What's going on? Like, how is it not haram? Is it not haram? Is it not haram to what? To impregnate? I don't mean impregnate random people. Yeah, I heard it on Mufti Abu Layth's show. I'm just impregnating. That's what. That's obviously, we're talking within a relationship. Is the hadith? Oh, Nasr is asking about. See, it always comes back to masturbation. No, it's not haram. It's not haram, but you can watch the rest of the show before you get preoccupied. This preoccupied. You can watch the rest of this before that. In a hadith by Aisha, when she was present at a funeral for a baby with the Prophet, she said the baby goes straight to heaven because of its age. The Prophet said that's wrong thinking on her part. Every soul's final home is dependent on whether Allah has ordained it for heaven or hell. Do we have a choice? Right, yes, this is actually so this is actually an interesting question. This is a good question. There are a number of hadith that imply things like a lack of free will, or that even children, that I have heard this hadith before, that even children are not just, so what they call atfalul mushrikeen or dhurriyatul kuffar, the children, the offspring of non-Muslims. So this is debated in the books of theology. Why the children? Because people are saying they're not liable from an Islamic point of view. How can they be, they're not answerable about, they don't have any mandatory actions to perform or refrain from. How can they be held to account? So the question being, now, will God hold these people to account? The general understanding, now there's a huge difference of opinion. The general understanding that the Ash'ari school, the Maturidi, the vast majority of the Muslims go with, is that they generally say that all people of Fatra, of that era that no prophet came to, or all children that are not responsible, accountable, these people will not be held to account. Okay, they will not be held to account. And we do believe that inshallah, we say inshallah, why? Because of the clause that ultimately Allah is in control and He could, have anybody to be doomed, but that's not the way of Allah, but that it ultimately He has power, ultimate power. So who He decrees to have eternal salvation or eternal damnation is up to Him. So we hold that clause, but generally we do believe that these people are not accountable. Okay, so to ease it up, that yes, we do believe that they are of Jannah, that they have salvation, inshallah. But we add that inshallah just because as a clause that Allah is ultimately in control, that no soul is saved or doomed without the will of Allah. So that's why. Cool. Okay, right. Next question, people. What? There were a few questions I was asked. I'm just trying to. Oh, right. Let me see what's. People must have asked me some questions. Let's see if I can do some rapid round here. Right. So, sorry. I'm trying to open this and all these other messages, all these other pop-ups. not those kind of naughty people out there. Right, so let me just go to the questions. I know people have submitted some already. Maybe I can just do some rapid round responses. Yeah. Okay, here they are. Assalamu alaikum. What is right hand possesses? What is the backdrop? Oof, such a lengthy discussion. I can't go into that all right now. Right hand possesses, right. See, this is the problem. When you become ambidextrous, you use both your hands. I don't know whether this is a left-handed person thing, but I can't seem. Whenever I think left-right, I have to think with my hands. As weird as that sounds, I have to think left because I write with my left hand. I don't, some people just think without, but I have to always think left, right. And since I learned to write with both hands, I just completely messed it all up. Left, left, right. So what the right hand possesses, people, the right hand. Now, this refers to captives, slaves, things like this, which is a very touchy, difficult topic. To sum it up, this existed. It was a worldwide phenomenon which Muslims were not any different to. The world generally had slavery and Muslims did too. In some ways they took it for granted. They didn't really discuss it, didn't go into too many details. However, the Prophet and Islam does unquestionably encourage freeing slaves. That is true, and you can see that on most accounts. Whenever to expiate certain wrongdoings, one of the options immediately is, why don't you just free a slave? That said, one could argue that why didn't Islam just argue for the emancipation of all slaves as of immediate effect? Arguably, people wouldn't have accepted it. And hence, I believe that Islam set these things on a trajectory of trajectory hermeneutics, that as the morals of the people would change, once they would abolish slavery, that because their morals have risen to that standard, that Islam had set a kind of like an arch, once it reached that, it would become haram. And hence many of the Maliki ulama from Africa, people from Mali and other countries, hundreds of years before the West, like in the 1700s and that kind of era, they had written how it was haram to own slaves. So that's my understanding, that it is haram, and it would unquestionably be haram. And I wouldn't justify it in some kind of beautifying it, but I would just say it was the way that things were. As to the having sex with them, which is always a question. I mean, that's not the question that they used to have with them. I mean, that's the... It's not like they'll say, oh, so the question is... the people... Yes, it's true that they did have sex with the slaves. I'm not saying they all had sex with the slaves, but I'm saying it wasn't haram. Now, the question then comes, how was it not haram? Which opens another whole can of worms. But in my understanding, I think it is quite complex, but we can't fathom it. Like, not that we can't fathom having sex. That I'm sure all the sickos out there are fathoming straight away. But you see, I've summed this up before. I've got a greater explanation, as in a lengthy explanation on YouTube. You can watch that. But the mindset back then kind of didn't distinguish between these things. It didn't see sex with the kind of sensitivities that people see sex today. As weird as this is going to sound, but sex was not a taboo so long ago. I know we today feel we're so modern and liberated when it comes to sex, but in the past, and I mean the far past, sex was not a taboo at all. Hence, none of the swearing was sexual, because swears are usually things to do with taboos. So to them, sex was like, it's how we consider today, like eating and drinking, and food is just like a given, like everybody eats, everybody, like they thought of it like that. And even in the Islamic literature, when you read the very early sources about sex, they seem to treat it like a very like a very kind of natural thing. Like the way they, I mean, it is a natural thing, but there is still a sensitivity about it today. Like, people won't discuss sex, for example, in front of other people. They wouldn't just say, like, if a guest came to your house, you wouldn't just say, yeah, we were just having sex right now. Unless you're an exceptional person and you run a webcam program. Joking, yeah, joking. Right, so the thing is now, but yet when you read the hadith literature, this is how they conversed. They conversed like that. Like, oh, what were you doing? Oh, we were just having sex. So it's a weird kind. When you read it, you find it like, whoa, like what is this? So the point is, now, the point being that back then they viewed sex